Hello and welcome. If you're looking for writing inspiration and bookish chat, you've come to the right place. With me, Wayne Kelly, bringing you author interviews, writing inspiration and advice since 2014. This week, I'm chatting to Niloufar Lamakan, debut rom-com author of Aged to Perfection. We talk about Niloufar's journey to publication, including coming to writing later in life, writing what you know, and pushing on after lots of rejection. And of course, we'll discover the book that saved her life. But first, here's a quick catch-up from me. Work continues apace on my non-fiction book, which is kind of part inspirational memoir, part treasure trove of advice from some of the hundreds of guests that I've been fortunate to speak to over the past 10 or 11 years. I'm really motivated with it at the minute, and I'm writing much quicker than I normally would on a fiction book. And I think that might be down to a couple of different reasons. Firstly, a lot of what I'm drawing on for this book is obviously memories of my life, essentially factual stuff that's happened along the way, which obviously it's less time consuming than having to create material from scratch. But also, and as a proud pantser who usually does very little planning, I'm kind of uncomfortable to admit this, I think it's because by my standards, I've done a very detailed outline for this book. Whilst I was on holiday a few weeks ago, I spent several sessions not only working on the overall structure and setup for the book, but then taking it one step further and creating a chapter plan. And as if that wasn't enough, I then wrote very detailed notes on what I wanted to include in each chapter. Now, I suppose you could say I've spent, just as much time as I would normally. It's just that I spent the first part of the process planning rather than drafting the book, which is kind of why I've also maintained that whether you're a pantser or a planner, you still end up having to do all of this stuff, the thinking, the working out the structure and having a sense of where you're going. The only real choice is whether you front load the planning and the thinking up front or whether you just start drafting and work it out as you go. I know it's not quite as straightforward as that because, as I've recently just written about in the book, if you go headlong into the first draft with absolutely no idea of where you're going, then there's a high chance you'll write way more than you need to, going off down dead ends and cul-de-sacs, overcomplicating the plot, and, sort of just getting lost in the weeds, which is why over the years I've moved to a more kind of hybrid way of doing things. I get the draft started, I work out who my characters are and generally what the book is about, and then I stop to try to come up with the end and give myself a possible roadmap of how I actually get there. I almost always change my mind and the characters tend to derail any detailed plans I've got anyway, but it's slightly more efficient than completely winging it. That's kind of what I've developed over the years anyway. Hence me describing myself as a plantser. I like to do a bit of both, but I have to say I'm finding the approach I'm using at the minute far more frictionless and more enjoyable, so perhaps I'll try to do something closer to this for the next novel. I don't know. The jury's out. And this could all be down to the fact that I'm writing non-fiction. Novels are totally different and they do and should have a life of their own. So I don't know. Stay tuned and I'll let you know how it goes when I get back on book 3 of the Mickey Blake series. And on that subject, thanks so much to everyone who's reviewed Safe Hands and the callback so far. I'm getting some really nice feedback and I'm still getting it, which is amazing. And it makes all that hard work and those sleepless nights worth it. If you've read either of the books and still haven't had a chance to leave me an Amazon review, I would greatly appreciate it. It doesn't even matter whether you bought it from Jeff Bezos, to be honest. You can still review it on there, and it makes a massive difference to visibility. And if you haven't checked out the books yet, well, why not? Safe Hands is my first book, and you'll find it under my pen name of W.A. Kelly. So that's me, pretty much. But what about you? What are you working on at the minute? What are your thoughts on planning or pantsing? Do you have any of your kind of unique approaches yourself? I'd love to hear about them. Don't forget you can drop me a line to wayne@waynekellyWrites.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I always reply. And if you're a writer looking to take charge of your writing or publishing journey, remember I now offer loads of helpful stuff over at my new website called WKW Productions. Whether you want full technical support or just a bit of coaching to guide you through, there's something for every stage of the process. I'm currently publishing another 5 books through my imprint, Pick Lock Publishing, including cover design, typesetting and all the technical stuff that you probably hate. Anyway, you can find out more about that at wkwproductions.co.uk. Right, let's get to today's chat with Niloufar Lamakan. So Niloufar is an Iranian-born author, artist and interior designer based in Islington, London, where she moved as a child and has lived for most of her life. Having pursued careers in tech, design, art and property before turning to writing in her late 40s, her debut novel, Aged to Perfection, won the Commendation Award in the Comedy Women in Print Prize and was a finalist at the Page Turner Awards as well. It was published in February and is available everywhere right now. So enjoy the chat, and I'll pop back at the end to wrap things up. Okay, Niloufar, thanks so much for being in the right place. It's great to chat to you. So why don't we just start off by just giving us a sense of how things are going in your writing world and, where you're speaking from as well. That'd be great.
Okay. Yeah. Hi there. Thank you for having me.
No problem.
I'm talking to you from home in Islington. I'm sitting in my living room because my office gets too hot on these hot days. It's up in the loft, so I'm downstairs.
Yeah.
And my writing life, I published my first book, my debut novel, in February this year. And it's had some success, and I've been very busy promoting it, going to festivals and doing a podcast like this, for example, just to try and get the word out. And it's been brilliant because I'm just meeting lots of people. I met you through an event, which was fantastic. Yeah. I made quite a few contacts at that. At that event, the book extravaganza.
Yeah.
Hopefully you did too.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I've done a few of those events actually with that particular company as well, and it's been really good. So why don't you tell us about that debut book, Age to Perfection?
It is, yes, Age to Perfection. It's about Sophia Stowe is the main character. She's 60 years old. And she's very successful in her field of interior design, has a great life, but has been a little bit unlucky in love of late. So she left after a terrible heartbreak. She ran away and traveled the world to try and get over it. And the book starts on New Year's Eve when she's come back, and her best friend, Layla, is trying to set her up with all the single men that she knows. And she just says, no, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm fine as I am. But then she thinks about it the next day and thinks, actually, this could be good fun. Because her friend Layla has challenged her and said, why don't you go out with one man every week, a new man every week, and see how it goes? So she decides to do it. She takes on the challenge. She's going to go out with a different man every week. But because she doesn't want her heart broken, she decides that she's not going to get emotionally entangled. She's just going to have fun and have sex if it comes with it and enjoy it. So basically, we follow her escapades throughout. And escapades are the right word, is the right word to use for her experiences.
Yeah.
And so it's a rom-com.
Yeah,
with quite a lot of comedy in it, including comedy sex.
Yeah.
But it's also got a more serious message, I think, because my protagonist is older and she's a bit different. She's portrayed as a successful person who really goes for it in life and doesn't allow her age to get in the way, which is not always the case in a lot of books about older women. So she's the center of the book, and so it's got a serious message behind it as well.
So what was your initial jumping off point for the book?
My jumping off point, gosh, I always say I had no idea what I was doing. I started doing this creative writing class. Well, before the class, I just went along to City Lit and did a creative writing course, purely because I just love doing courses, and just thought, oh, this sounds good, I'll do it. And I ended up going to a weekly class, and each week our teacher would say to everyone, tell us what projects you're working on. And everyone would just go, no, nobody ever had any projects. And in the end, I thought, I need a project. So I was dating at the time, so I had a lot of inspiration, let's say, for what I could include. And when I wrote in class, when we used to read out our poetry or pieces of writing, everyone would always laugh, and I was not at me, but at my work.
With you hope.
Yes, with me, I hope. And I thought, well, maybe I can write comedy. So I just thought, I'm going to have a go at writing a novel. So I started, and because I had no idea, I was writing drivel at first, I must admit. I didn't really know how to go about it, but gradually I learnt. And I started in January 2020, and then, of course, the pandemic happened. I had a lot of time on my hands, and I just found myself writing about 5 or 6 hours a day. I was just, really getting into it, having it reviewed by my teacher, who would give me tips. And to begin with, it was all bad feedback.
Well, constructive feedback.
Constructive, but yes. But I learned. I spent hours and hours listening to, watching YouTube videos, going to webinars, every free thing I could get my hands on to learn about the craft of writing. And gradually I got better and better until I had a novel, and I finished it, which was fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how I started out, really. And then I started submitting it, and now I look back and realize that it really wasn't ready at the time. So I had. I'm a very determined person. I'm like a dog with a bone. I won't let go until I've achieved what I want to do. And I just kept submitting, and the rejections kept coming. And then, one day I got an offer. It was just like, wow, I couldn't believe it. I kept reading the email again. This isn't an offer. They're just saying, oh, maybe, it can't be an offer. But it was fantastic. Yeah.
And how did that feel when that came through?
Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because I had 42 rejections.
Yeah.
I have a folder on my computer for every submission and the rejection and everything. And I don't know, well, you self-publish, don't you? So
I do now, but I've been through the same process as you, yeah.
Yeah, so it is disheartening. But, you hear about how many rejections other people have had and have then ended up being really successful authors. So I kept going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just part of it, unfortunately. But then, I have had the occasional person on the podcast that's had totally the opposite, where they've literally, the first thing they sent out, it got picked up for whatever reason. Sometimes, obviously, it's because the book might have been great, but also sometimes it is because it just landed on the right desk at the right time and everything else. So it is difficult. But yeah, most people's story is lots and lots and lots of rejection. Yeah. And it does kind of, so while you were doing that and you were getting, those rejections, did you carry on writing at the same time as you were getting these things? Or was it a bit of a block because you thought, what's the point while I'm getting all these rejections?
No, I carried on editing because I think every time, if you're lucky enough to get actual feedback, then you realize what you could work on. I did a few agent one-to-ones, and I got feedback on what I could do to improve the book. So, obviously, like a lot of other authors, I had a day job as well. So there's only so much you can do. Yeah. So I hadn't started on another novel, but I was constantly improving and resubmitting.
Yeah. So what sort of feedback did you get on those earlier drafts when you were starting to get feedback from agents and whoever? What sort? Just, I don't mean specifics, obviously, because people not necessarily read the book, but just in general terms, what did you find it was sort of the same things for a start? You could sort of pick out, oh right, that's clearly an issue, or
yes, I think the best advice got was there was actually too much comedy.
Right.
I was told that you had to have shade to go with the light, and that was really good advice, because it was all like punchlines, lots of laughs, and not much emotional depth, which you need both for a rom-com. So that was the main issue that I had to work on and try and develop the emotional side of it, so that you could feel what the characters were going through, as well as what fun they were having as well.
So that was good that you picked up on that. So you mentioned your day job. So why don't you take us back to where it all started? Obviously, it sounds like you came to writing later in life, or was it something that had you thought about it when you were younger though, or was it something that was hovering in the background? Had you ever sort of messed about making notes, or did you just give me a sense of that?
No, nothing at all.
That's all right though. Lots of people, that's the case.
I had no ambition to write, really. And as I said, I think I just went along to this creative writing course because I just thought, oh, that's something I can try. One of the few courses I haven't done.
Yeah.
And I think I was about 60 around that time when I started on the courses. So I just came to it and enjoyed it and thought, why not? And when I initially started doing the course, the first course, because I'm Iranian, I was born in Iran, but I've lived here most of my life. Mm-hmm. And I had this idea I might write some sort of family saga about, life in Iran as a child and coming here and so on. But then somehow I ended up writing a rom-com.
That's obviously what came out. And it sounds like you drew, like you say, in terms of the setup and the premise, sounds like you drew on quite a lot of your own life and your background, because haven't you got a background in interior design as well? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Write about what you know.
Exactly.
Thought, what job shall I give her? And then I thought, well, I've got lots of funny stories and interesting stories. And actually people find the interior design side really interesting, because if it's a world you don't know.
Exactly. That's the thing, I think, with anything like that. And obviously, if you know it as well, you don't have to do tons of research or whatever. Yes. But I think you're right. I think anything that people haven't got a direct experience of themselves, they're keen to learn about things that kind of as they read your book. So obviously, it sounds like you learnt a lot in that whole process, because you went through all the same things that everybody does, the rejection and everything else. So is it going to be a series? Or are you working on, or have you finished the next book? Where are you with that?
I didn't want it to be a series. I wanted to be standalone. But then I thought maybe at some point I will do a follow-up. Not at the moment. I did start writing a book when this one came out. Well, before this one came out, actually, I started writing a book, struggling with it a little bit, and then I set it aside because I was doing all the marketing and had a lot of design work on as well, so I just didn't have time. And then about 3 weeks ago, I said, right, I'm going to sit down. I need to finish this book. And as soon as I sat at my desk and got the file up, I thought, I don't want to do this. I want to do something different. And I was listening to your podcast, your latest one, you saying, writing like a demon. And I've been writing like a demon ever since. It's just, I got another idea and I've been working on that. And I've already halfway through the first draft.
And that's brilliant.
It's just been pouring out.
Similar sort of genre, or?
Yes, it's sort of, not quite a rom-com, but it's about female friendship. So I've been working on the story and the characters and getting those right, but then I'm going to go back and put some comedy in as well.
Yeah. Why do you think you clearly, whether you thought about it or not, you're clearly drawn to that genre, subconsciously or otherwise? Was it a genre that you'd read a lot of as well?
No.
Were you much of a reader? What kind of books did you read?
Yeah, I read all sorts, really. Yes, I love reading. I've read a lot of rom-coms since I started writing, obviously, for research. But also, I've read lots that I've actually loved. I read one by Millie Johnson recently, her latest one, and just absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
So rom-coms alone, never mind romance, it's such a wide range of way of writing, you know. So yeah, and I read it a lot more now, and I really enjoy it. But I like reading crime, cozy crime. I read one of the books I read recently was Fundamentally, which is on the Women's Prize shortlist.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which is set in Iraq. I mean, brilliant book. If you get a chance to read it, you learn so much about what's going on out there, but it's absolutely hilarious as well. So she's really managed to get the two sides working together, the terrible side of it, but also you can see the funny side of it. So yeah, I read really widely. Not into fantasy and sci-fi, but I'll read anything else.
Yeah, that's good. And obviously on the kind of the you're talking about the age side of things. You mentioned you obviously came to it late. You've got an older protagonist. How important do you think that is now? How do you, as you say, you're keen to presumably break stereotypes?
Absolutely, yes. I found, like you said, it is changing a little bit now. But when you get older women in particular in fiction, as in most films as well, they tend to be in a secondary role. They're in a supporting role to somebody else who's at the center of the story.
Yeah.
And they're not portrayed as people as themselves, but as an adjunct to the story or somebody else. So I wanted to go against that and have someone who's older right at the center, who does do outrageous things. And it is true to life, because some people get to 60 and they might want to retire, put their feet up. That's their prerogative. If that's what they want to do. But others feel like life's just started. I'm going to take on a new career, or I'm going to take on a new
60
hobby.
is the new, yeah. 60 is the new 40, yeah. Apparently. So,
yeah. And you were saying, about the population getting older. That's very true. But I think we're at the same time, we're getting younger, because a 60-year-old now versus a 60-year-old in the 50s is very different.
I think,
story.
I think everything. I don't just think outlook and lifestyle. I also think even down to the way people look now. Along the journey, obviously, you had a lot of rejections and things. What made you keep going through those rejections? 40 odd rejections it's tough, isn't it?
I think I put so much into it. When I started writing, I had no idea how long it was going to take and how much effort it was going to take. And when you put all of that into it, you think, no, I'm not going to give up and just forget about it. But also, I think it's just a personality trait. I'm just very determined and don't give up very easily. So every time I got a rejection, it would be like, oh, no, not another one. And then I would allow myself to be a little bit upset about it that day. And the next day, it's move on. Don't think about it. Just carry on. Keep going.
And what about your friends and stuff, and your family while you were going through this? Were you a secret writer from all those people, or did you tell them what you were doing?
No, not a secret writer at all. No, I told everyone.
What would you say was kind of the biggest learning curve at the beginning? Like, were there things that because you come in completely new to writing, were there things that you were like, oh, right, I had no idea that was a thing, or coming at it from that as a complete beginner?
Yeah, one thing that I now look back and think is hilarious was when I was asking my teacher, every week I would send her what I'd written, and she would give me feedback. And she kept saying, look, don't worry about it. This is the first draft. It's only the first draft. And I kept thinking, what does she mean? What's the first draft? I mean, when I finished it. And now I look back and think, duh.
No, I think, you know what? That's a really common misconception. The non-fiction book I'm writing at the minute kind of deals with how I started writing and what I was thinking about it. And that was one of my first things. I just thought I knew that there was editing, and I knew that, but in my mind, that was just making sure everything was spelt correctly and all the grammar was right. And I had no idea that, no, it actually meant looking deeply at the story and the characters and maybe cutting some things out and completely changing things, or maybe even starting again or whatever. But yeah, definitely the first draft. I think that's quite common for a lot of people when they first start writing.
Yes, and all those things you said about what you do when you go back, and you can go back and spend a whole hour working on one sentence trying to perfect it.
Yeah.
I was very lucky because, as I said, with my teacher, I'll give her a plug, Dina Lucia, who is absolutely brilliant. She helped me a lot to just help me structure my ideas, because it was all a jumble. I was writing, didn't know how to put things together. So she really helped me. And I also have another friend, Claire, who loves editing. And she was, just because we're friends, she really wanted to read it. And she said it was a labor of love. She went through it, gave me feedback at quite a detailed level that I wasn't expecting her to do, but was very, very grateful for. So having those two people really helped me try and hone it.
Yeah. And could you feel it getting better as you're going along? Because again, some people, when they first start out, especially if they're kind of new to writing, they get some of this feedback and somebody saying, well, no, you need to change this or cut this character or whatever it is. And for some people, it's just like, well, forget it. This is my story and I'm not going to change it. And that's that. But did you have any resistance to that initially, or?
Obviously, you don't agree with everything, because you do get contradictory advice as well. For example, I have some dreams sequences, a thing in the book where she falls asleep on the sofa and has a dream.
Yeah.
And people were like quite violent reactions to that, one way or the other. And then I thought, well, some people are going to absolutely love it and some are going to hate it. And I want to do it, so I will do it.
So what about from a point of view, you mentioned there the actual publication. So tell me a little bit about that in terms of how you found that whole process and what it was like when it actually came out. And if there's been anything since you got published or during the publishing process and the release process that you just didn't expect or you didn't realize was going to happen, or because again, that's something that you come into completely fresh.
You learn all along until you've been through one round and got one book out and marketed it. There are so many things that are unanticipated. I think I've been really lucky with my publisher, One More Chapter, which is an imprint of HarperCollins.
Yeah.
And they've just been really good. They're a great team. They gave me good feedback, very supportive. And what I love about them is they listen to you, which I know not all publishers do. So the process really has been great. We disagreed a little on the cover, but they were good. They listened to me, and I think in the end we came up with something that everyone loved. So yeah, it's been great, and they're still very supportive. What did I not expect? You know that you're going to have to do. I knew that I had to do a lot of my own marketing, because everyone thinks, oh yeah, your publisher must do it all. I mean, I had this massive launch party, and I thought, it's my first book, I'm going to go for it. I had about 80 people, and it was in Waterstones in Covent Garden.
Wow.
It was brilliant. And one of my friends texted me the day after and said, my husband was so impressed that your publisher had thrown such a party for you. And I'm like, no, I did all of it. I was told when I signed that particular imprint of HarperCollins only does digital advertising, and the whole marketing budget goes on that. Yeah. I mean, they were willing to do a launch for me, but it would have meant the budget for advertising would have been reduced. So in the end, I decided to just do that side of it myself. So I think it was, even though I knew I would have to do a lot, it was still more than I expected. And it's like just shouting into the wind, isn't it? You just don't know what's going to stick.
Yeah.
I had a couple of articles in the Telegraph, which were...
That's brilliant.
Really good. I know, I couldn't believe it because one of my friends, I knew it was coming out, but one of my friends sent me a picture and said, "You're on the cover of the Saturday Telegraph." And
Wow.
I was literally,
Wow.
it
That's
was just
incredible.
me on the,
And was that through the publisher, or you managed to sort that yourself?
no, I don't know if I told you, but I won an award at the Comedy Women in Print
I saw that in the
prize.
research. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I've met a lot of people through that prize, and I met a journalist who was Liz Hoggard. She was on the judging panel for the unpublished books that I was, the year that I was on it. And she'd really enjoyed the book. So I sort of kept in touch with her, and then I went back and pitched her and said, "Would you be interested in doing an article?" So yeah, I woke up on Saturday morning. I had to rush down to the supermarket and buy a coffee.
That's fantastic, though. Yeah. But I think that'll be quite inspiring for people listening to this that are just well, they might be submitting now, or they might have been signed and they're going to do it. Because I think I'm yet to meet anybody that really likes doing promotion and publicity. And the problem is that because a lot of people don't like doing it, they just don't bother with it, or they struggle to do it. What would be your advice to people that are maybe feeling a bit like that and they're just about to release their first book?
I think you've got to do it. You've put in all that hard work. Some people say they just want to produce a book because they love doing that and they're not bothered about sales, which I find it blows my mind. I don't understand that, but I get it that that's the case with some people. But if you do want success and you want to sell books, then you have to do it. And some of it can be fun. I mean, I've done quite a few bookshop events now, for example. And it's really scary because after the first couple, when your friends and family have supported you, you know you're going to get members of the public turning up who don't know you. They're not invested in you in any way. And it's really, really scary. And I do get really nervous running up to it. But once it starts, it's really good fun because people are nice. They're not going to be horrible to you.
Especially book people, I tend to find in the main, they're pretty nice. I should imagine the more nerve-wracking thing with those things is whether anybody's going to turn up. That would all be my thing, because I've seen a lot of, some people that are well-known authors with a few books under their belt, and they've told me stories, or I've seen they've posted pictures or whatever, and there's like 2 people turned up, or it's been cancelled because only 2 people bought tickets or whatever. And it's not to do, I think the thing is, it's easy to take that personally, but you think about all the distractions and all the other things that people have got now. It's a massive thing for them to even buy your book, let alone turn up to an event that you're attending or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah, that is the really scary. And the very first one I did that was a public event, I was a mess beforehand, and it was in my local library. They'd really advertised it. They had a leaflet by the entrance advertising the event, and I know they're distributed elsewhere and put it on social media. In the end, 1 person came as a result of all of that advertising. Yeah. But luckily, a few of my friends decided they would carry on supporting me. They turned up and they brought their friends who didn't know me. So
it worked out.
It was friends of friends, but it was still people who didn't know me and were interested. And
whatever. So with speaking of books, obviously one of the segments that I do on the show is It's the Book. It's the book that saved my life. Yeah, it's the book. It's the book that saved my life. So if I said that to you, what sort of springs to mind?
Yeah. Well, I think as a child, there wasn't a culture of reading fiction in my household. We did have a lot of books, but they were all about learning. They were non-fiction, or there were some religious books. So I hadn't really been brought up with the culture of reading and being a bookworm. So I came into reading quite later in life, or in my 20s. And the book that always springs to mind when people ask me is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. I remember reading that and just being blown away. I found out she was in her 20s, I think she was 27 or something when she wrote it. And it was so erudite. It was so beautifully written. And it just completely gripped me. And that was the book that got me into reading. So I love that book. That's always comes to mind first when people ask me.
That's the one. What do you think it was that connected with you particularly? Was there anything in it that particularly connected with you?
It was just really gripping. It was these characters, in a very rarefied sort of circumstances, and they were doing really dubious things, and some of them getting away with it because of who they were. And it was just beautifully written. I learned a lot from it because she just packed it with references and cultural references and historical references. So I thought, wow, to do that in your 20s is something.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap things up, if you were, if there'll be people that are listening to this that are maybe a little bit older, they're later in life, and they're thinking either they've started writing or they're going to get into writing or whatever, what would be your advice to them in terms of pushing forward with it and giving things a go?
Honestly, it's just go for it. Just go for it. I've got a friend who writes short stories, and I keep saying to her, these short stories are really good. You need to develop them into a novel. And it's hard to just make that mental leap and commit to it. But you learn so much. You learn about publishing and the process and everything, but you learn lots of other things along the way. You make loads of friends. I've made loads of friends through this new career. I think especially when you get older, it's not so easy to make new friends. And I'm picking up groups here and there, and out of each of them, you might make one who's the closer friend. So even if it's for the social life, do it. I know it's a solitary career, but there's the social side of it as well. And just go for it. You might find you love it, and it completely changes your life. But the other thing I always say to people is always be aware that you might fail. And I think if you go into it accepting that, that's fine, because not everybody can do everything, despite what they say. Putting your mind to it and doing it. You might find it tough, and it might not be for you, but not doing it because it might not work is not a good enough reason. It might work, and then it might be brilliant.
That's a great way of looking at it. Have you learned anything about yourself as part of this writing journey, would you say?
I have, definitely. I'm not going to share the details. But I will say that, as you know, with the debut author, you put a lot of yourself into it. And this one was a 60-year-old interior designer. Me, point at myself. And I did start off writing a lot about putting a lot of myself into it. And then I sort of got out of that and started to actually create things rather than just make it about me. But I think I did find out quite a bit about myself as I was writing it. Yeah. But I'm not going to go into details.
That's interesting. We'll maybe save that for another chat some other time.
Yeah.
I will get it out of you. Well, as we kind of wrap things up, Niloufar, just remind people about the book, where they can find it, and also where they can find out more about you online.
Yes. So it's called Age to Perfection. You can find it on all Amazon, Waterstones, everywhere, all retailers. It's just gone on to Kindle Unlimited. So hopefully that will encourage a few more people to look at it. And you can find out more about me on niloufarlamakan.com, which is my website. Come and join me. Subscribe to my newsletter.
Brilliant.
I won't bombard you with info. So every now and then I send out a newsletter. Yeah. And I try and pack in other stuff rather than just talk about myself.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, it's been great to talk to you. But for now, thanks for being in the right place.
Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. Thanks again to Niloufar, and I'll put all of her links in the show notes. And don't forget to check out wkwproductions.co.uk to find out how I can help you get that book published and make sure you keep writing and editing to get those books finished and ready to read in the first place. So that's it for this week, other than me reminding you to drop me a line at waynekellywrites.com to tell me what you want to see in future shows. And obviously, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from, because that way you can have the show downloaded automatically every time. Also, remember to leave me a nice rating and review, because just like book reviews, it really does help other people to find the show. Or, just keep telling your friends. That would be marvellous. So thanks for listening. I'm Wayne Kelly. Happy writing, stay safe, and I'll see you next time in The Right Place.